thank you for taking the time out of your day, learning about your wellness and how to promote wellness during this time. And this is going to be a brief conversation, okay? I really think of these as conversation starters. I hope that you leave here today with a couple of things that you can try and do to help you manage better during this time. So you are here for a wellness workshop. And the first thing I like to do with all of my participants when we do something is to help us just take a moment right now to feel less stress. So what I'd like to start with is to help you put a period on whatever you were doing before. So as an example, what I was doing just before I came here was trying to get my adolescents out the door. So what were you all doing before you came to this session today? Just really quick. Something I find really, really helpful is to make sure you're ending one thing before you start on the next. That helps reduce your stress. Reviewing cases, answering phone calls regarding COVID quarantining, working on work projects. I would love for you to take a moment and just put that aside. And we're going to do a very brief activity here to help you just be grounded in the here and now. So what I'd like you to do, breathing is a really helpful tool. You can do it anytime and no one will know that you're doing it. You can do it in meetings. You can do it at home with your kids or family. So what I'd like you to do is take a moment and breathe in really deeply, starting at the base of your stomach, and breathe in fully so you're so full that it almost hurts, and then breathe out. So I'm going to count you through this. So I want you to start by breathing in to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold it, and blow it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in deeply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold it. And now blow it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well done. And now I want you to look around your environment, and I want you to just label 4 things that you see. Just look around and notice them. 4 things. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I want you to notice things that you hear in your environment. So just take a moment and listen to what's around you. 1 will be my voice. Excellent. And I want you to notice any smells in your environment. So breathe in and notice what you smell. Excellent. And last, I want you to notice how your body feels. So notice where your hands are. Notice how your clothes feel on your body. Notice if you're sitting, what your seat feels like in your seat. Notice your feet in your shoes. And then take 1 big breath in. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold it. And then breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. Now, I would encourage you to do this often through your day. It really helps in terms of your wellness. And if you do nothing else, you will find benefit from that activity. All right, so moving along. I want to make sure you know who we are and where we're from. This whole project is funded by FEMA, and it's managed by the Vermont Departments of Emergency Management and the Department of Mental Health, but it's administered by Vermont Care Partners. And you'll notice the logos of the 16 agencies around the state and in your communities that support people with mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I am the quality director for for Vermont Care Partners. I'm also the clinical supervisor for COVID Support VT, and I'm also a psychologist. I have my doctorate and I support kids and families in a pediatric office. And a lot of what I'm talking to you about today are things that I actually talk to the families and kids I work with to help them feel better. The goal of our project is to help people in communities with their mental well-being during this time. And we do that by teaching people how to cope and feel supported and connect them to agencies that might help them. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to spend just 25 quick minutes learning about the pandemic and its effects on our mental health. We're going to talk about what promotes recovery and talk about a wellness plan. And I'm hoping you can leave here with one idea of what to do. I'd like you to know what to watch for in yourself and others, and then what to do if you feel people need more support. So first, I actually think it's important we understand what a disaster is. A disaster is a natural or human-caused event that causes human suffering. And what's really, I think, really important to recognize is that these events tend to overwhelm local resources and service networks. So COVID Support VT is here to provide some extra support until the middle of June. And this particular disaster that we're in is in the category of human caused. And what we know is that human caused disasters tend to have more stress and distress associated with them because there's some feeling of betrayal or that we could have done something differently to make this not quite so bad. That tends to make people feel worse. And something that's really unique about this particular event, I also worked on this similar grant for Irene, is that unlike a hurricane or a tornado, this particular event, this pandemic, is really ongoing and lengthy. We don't have a clear end. We know that the vaccine is here, but because it's so unclear, it actually increases our stress. It's affecting everybody. It's affecting me, it's affecting you. Pretty much everyone who is at all interacting with the world has been impacted by this pandemic. And we know that disparities that already existed are even being made worse by this particular experience. And clearly, and you all know this, there's direct health and mental health impacts from this. So clearly the virus has physical health impacts, but as people have been experiencing loneliness, fear, stress, isolation, we know that people are, their pre-existing conditions or their feelings of stress have been increasing. And right now, there's this interesting paradoxical effect that people are talking to me about, which is we know that the end of the pandemic is coming with the vaccine, but a lot of people are actually experiencing an increase in their stress and anxiety at this time as they have to figure out how to get back out into the social world. So if you're experiencing that at all, it's normal and common. So just a few points of information which you might find helpful to know. There's been some research done and some polling done to look at the impacts of the pandemic on people's stress and well-being. And this particular study came out in December from the American Psychological Association. And you can see on the screen that 78% of people who responded said that the coronavirus is a significant source of stress in their life. And what's really notable to me is that 7 out of 10 people said that really my stress has been increasing over time. And other polls that have been done have really been finding the same result, that the vast majority of us are really struggling with the stress related to this whole pandemic. The other thing I like to point out to people, and this isn't to make anybody feel bad, it's about awareness, okay, is that if you are in what's considered a higher risk group, you might be impacted more by the negative effects of the disaster in terms of your stress and mental well-being, mental health. And you notice on this list, we have older Vermonters, people with pre-existing conditions, whether that's mental health, substance use, or medical conditions, people who have a trauma history, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, caregivers of anybody, persons of color, migrant workers or new Americans, first responders, I would add in there essential workers, people who live alone, children and youth, and people who already were living in poverty or with economic stressors related to poverty. So that's a huge list. So I want to take a moment and just see, you should see on your screen, Rebecca, I'm hoping you see on your screen. Can you just nod and let me know? Thank you. There's a poll here. Let me know how many categories you identify with from that list, if any. And the reason I do this while you respond to this poll is I like people just to be aware that first, if you're in more than one category, it makes sense to really invest in your own well-being. And second, it's just good to know that as the categories that you identify with increase, so does your risk for stress. But there's a lot we can do about that. Most people identified with 1 or more, with some people identifying with 5 or more. And this is commonly what I see. A comment about recovery in terms of wellness, awareness of where you are in the recovery process is pretty critical in terms of taking good care of yourself. And let me turn on my pointer here because it helps to, here we go. So what we have, this is a recovery curve. It's straight out of some of the FEMA literature. And what you see on the left here are emotional highs to emotional lows. And this is time, okay? And you see here pre-disaster, this is when we knew COVID existed. over in Asia, making its way across. As it came closer, the threat might be when we knew it came into the United States, maybe New York. And impact is different for everyone, but for a lot of people, they're saying the impact for us in Vermont is when the state of emergency was declared, and all of a sudden our day-to-day life drastically changed. And there's this interesting thing that happens at the point of impact, where all of a sudden people get a lot of energy and they rally together and they try to come up with common responses that could be helpful. And you might remember, at least in my community, there were a lot of food drives, there was a lot of active outreach. All of a sudden, everybody was on Zoom calls with their families. And it was really a time of high energy. But then we enter this period that you might identify with, where our emotions kind of drop and we're feeling lower and we're thinking, will this thing ever end? And we're down in this period here, working our way out, all right, where we have trigger events that occur. Maybe somebody was sick, maybe your job changed, maybe your kids started to go back to school, but not full time, or they struggled with it. This is very self-defined, but I just am pointing it out. There's a lot of highs and lows within this time. But what's really helpful to notice is that we eventually improve. All right. And for some people, this anniversary is really important. There's been a lot of press right now about how we've been in this pandemic for a year. But the anniversary may or may not be helpful to you, and that's fine. And your anniversary may be defined by different things. Maybe it's defined by when something significant changed in your life and not with March 13th, and that's fine. But as we move through this time of reconstruction, part of what helps us get through this is self-care, but also what helps us is being really aware of what we've learned that works for us and maybe what we don't want to keep from prior to the pandemic, and that's healthy. All right. A comment about stress. It's a real thing and it's subjective. So what's stressful for me may not be stressful for you. It's part of everyday life. And it can have real health impacts, as in negative ones, if you don't manage it well. All right. And many of you may have seen this particular figure before. It's a representation of stress. So this is level of pressure or stress on the bottom. And this is your ability to perform, whatever that is for you, on this axis here. And if you don't have any stress, you're bored. You don't do anything. You lay around like a lump. But, you know, as you get a little bit of stress, that can be motivating, right? That can be helpful. So if I have a few deadlines or some things that are coming up, that's helpful for me. But if you layer on top of that, the pandemic, the stressors, the multiple roles, the changes in everything that you have to do, our stress level or our pressure really increases. And we really run the risk of falling over into this area of strain and burnout. And down here is where we see more people developing mental health conditions. So this whole discussion today is a prompt for you to try to develop some strategies and habits that can be helpful for you. And you notice down here, we talk about how it begins with awareness and we manage it with active coping. So let's get on with that. So how do we do that? It starts first with good self-care, with having really good information about the disaster that you're in, and with us, that's in the pandemic, having good psychosocial supports, and having good resources for other needs. And so I'd like to ask you now another question, which is, do you practice wellness? You could choose, no, I'm really not interested, or no, but I'd like to, occasionally when I think of it, a few times per week or every day. And now the next question I want to ask you is, what gets in the way of your wellness practice? A lot of times there's some really concrete things that make it difficult for us to do these things. So people are saying a lot of things that I say to myself, frankly, I forget. I am totally in that category and I've been working on it. Some people have said, I don't make the time, and it is very hard to make the time. And as we talk about some ideas today, I'm going to give you some very practical things you can do, which are short and sweet, that really help. I feel I don't have the time, and that is a real thing. And maybe some of the suggestions we have today can help with that. And there's so many reasons for why we don't do these things, and they're all legitimate. So let's see if we can help you with coming up with some ideas that make this part of your day-to-day life. So now I'm going to give you a handout that will let you have this management plan and has a link to where you can download it for yourself. But a basic daily wellness plan has these types of components. Now, if you don't do all of these, I don't want you to be stressed out. That's okay. These are basic things that are helpful if you're able to do them most of the time. The first one is the one that I think is hardest for a lot of people, which is allowing yourself to take a break and letting your mind stop. Now, the thing we did at the beginning of this workshop, that took us maybe 2 minutes. And there's actually research behind that. If you do a couple minutes, 5 minutes of meditation a day, it has real impacts, positive impacts on levels of pain, perceptions of stress. It can really be helpful. And our website has a treasure trove of different things that you can do. And one of the things I recommend to people is that you set your smartphone to go off once an hour with a vibrator, with a vibration, so that you're not bugging your colleagues. And when that goes off, you do that simple activity that we did at the beginning, just to allow you to stop your brain, breathe, and regroup. And that makes a huge difference. And there's your reminder. You don't have to go take yoga. You don't have to sign up for this major thing. It could be as simple as that. The next thing is to try to eat well. And I think this is really hard for a lot of people, especially when we're stressed. And for people who are food insecure. There's been a lot of effort to try to connect people with resources for food and nutrition. But if you're able to eat 3 meals a day and have healthy snacks in between, it really does help. And again, our site has some resources for that. Exercise and rest. I think a lot of people get thrown by the exercise one. And for exercise, people can feel really overwhelmed with, how do I fit that into my day? And I'd love to, if you're able to take a class or go for a run or ride a stationary bike, that is awesome. But if that's too much for you, I'd love for you to think about it differently, which is to mean park further away from where you need to go and walk briskly. Take a break from your work and encourage your colleagues to do the same, and take a 15-minute longer walk to the restroom than you normally would, just breathing while you do it. Just interjecting 10-minute episodes during your day to equal maybe 60 minutes a day of moving your body really makes a huge difference. And with the warmer weather, it is getting a little bit easier to get outside. So if you're able to get outside and do that, it's incredibly helpful. Resting is critical. Sleep evades a lot of people. And a lot of particularly youth I've met through the course of the pandemic have completely fallen off of their sleep schedules. But if you're able to have good sleep hygiene, go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, keep electronics out of your room, you will find that your overall stress level will go down. Now, here's one that I really love, but sometimes is difficult for me to do, is to connect with people outside of your home, other than work employees, work coworkers every day. A lot of us are really struggling with burnout from Zoom. I'm impressed that a lot of you are here, because we just have so many video calls, it's hard. But using letters, phone calls, Zoom calls, smoke signals, whatever it is, it's really helpful to connect with people outside of your home. And somebody wrote me that it's really hard to work on sleep when you have toddlers and infants. And that is so true. So if you're fortunate, back on sleep, if you're fortunate to be partnered and be co-parenting, taking shifts about who gets up at night, so at least you can trade off on who gets a full night's sleep, can help. And yes, it does get better, and it's true. All right, so connection is really critical if you're able to do it. Trying to avoid, or at least being aware of, your relationship with substances. Here I have alcohol and drugs. I might throw in there massive amounts of sugar, caffeine. If you find that your substance use, whatever your substance is increasing, then I would encourage you to try to do other things on this list more, and or to talk to a trusted friend or provider about that. We know, and I'm sure you're well aware, that overdoses and substance use has gone way up. And at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the main areas of sales that went way up was of beer and alcohol. So I would encourage you to be very aware of, when you reach for something, ask yourself, why am I doing that? Is there something else I could do to feel better at this time? Managing pre-existing conditions is key. And this means if you have a plan for treating a health condition or a mental health condition or a substance use disorder, follow it. And if you haven't connected with your health team in a while, give them a ring. A lot of people have deferred their preventative care or have just fallen off for a lot of great reasons, their treatment plan. If you're able to get back to that, please do, and your providers want to help you with that. Media exposure is really a kicker. We live in the time of 24-hour news cycles with feeds and alerts that come across your phone and your machines. And I would really encourage you to turn those alerts off. So you can choose when you want to learn about what's going on in the world, and you can do it at a time that works for you. And I would encourage you to limit it to a certain time each day and don't do it any other time. And then the last one is this notion of practicing gratitude, whatever that is for you. Some people keep a journal at the end of the day where they list things that they're grateful for. Some people talk about it at the dinner table. Some people just let people know around them what they're grateful for, or they simply say thank you to people around them. But this simple act not only makes others feel better when you do it, express things to them, but it will absolutely make you feel better. All right. So before I forget, the worksheet has this particular stress management plan and links to other things that you can do. So you have that at the ready. And what I would love for you to do is to be sure to leave today with one thing that you want to try that's different. Something I do every day is I really try hard to move my body and get outside. So we see time with animals, a walk in the woods, going for a walk, exercise. Animals are great. A lot of people are finding their pets so helpful right now. Being present with my children and make sure to get a short walk in, that's great. Kids are really great at they demand that you be in the moment. You don't get much choice. Watching my pets play together, that's great. Watching other people, watching your pets, being in the woods, audiobooks are all things that really, really help. And they let you take a break. And a lot of people who are helpers feel pressured to not do these things that make them feel better. And actually, we need you to do them, because when you do these things and take care of yourself, then you're better able to do your job with helping others. So I would like you to consider this as part of your work responsibility. All right, so just to give you a little bit more information in the last few minutes before we end, is I'd like you to know, what to watch for and what to do if you're concerned for people around you. So the basic rule I follow is if you're seeing these things for more than 2 weeks and people around you, people that you care about, people you work with, it might be time to do something. So if people are talking more about being concerned about their health and well-being, if you're noticing significant changes in sleep and eating patterns, difficulty concentrating, but I should say we're all having difficulty concentrating, but if it's really noticeable, if you're noticing or people are talking about worsening conditions listed here, or if people are talking about or you're noticing increased substance use, then it's time to check in about that. And a lot of people are really hesitant to ask and talk about this. But frankly, if 80% of us are struggling, then wouldn't it be helpful if we just asked and talked about it? So the first is to model self-care and what that looks like, and to actually talk about what you're doing and to encourage it in people around you. All right. When you do that, you're validating that it's important and you're saying, yes, please make time in your day to do this and it will help. Start with talking about what you see and ask how you can help. So you could say, Kath, I'm noticing that you're talking about not sleeping and it's been going on for a while and I'm concerned about you. Can I be helpful? Now, I may or may not take you up on that, but the fact that you've asked me is in and of itself curative and helpful. So it's okay to ask. You can help them reach out to a healthcare provider. You can help them find and seek support from a mental health provider. If they belong to a faith-based community, you can help them reconnect with that group or with that leader, and or just help them connect with other people. Isolation is the kicker here. And so if we can connect people with others, it makes a big difference. So now, where do you go for supports? You can use your employee assistance program. As I mentioned, there's mental health supports out there. Often they're integrated into your healthcare environments, schools. You can access different agencies in Vermont by calling 211. You can find private providers. And then, of course, you can call one of our network agencies at Vermont Care Partners. And then I'd like you to know about a few numbers which are important. So again, your employee assistance program, 211 option 2, we have COVID Support VT has support counselors available Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 for free. And you don't have to say who you are. And their job is to provide support, encouragement, and help you develop plans to feel better. They will also call people. If you're concerned about someone, you can say, Kath has asked me to have you call them. We will call them. We will set up meetings so that people can connect with each other. So please call us and let us know how we can be helpful. Vermont Help Link, you see the number there is a connection to learn about services for substance use. And you see two other numbers there, a text line and an actual phone number that you can use any time of day if you're concerned about someone's mental health or someone's experiencing a mental health crisis. And finally, I would love to encourage you to visit our website. There's a ton of information there, apps, videos, downloadable materials. We're adding stuff every day, and it's available for everyone to use. You can email us to let us know how we can be helpful. You can call us, and again, you can call our support counselors. So please invest in yourself, create a plan. You're worth it. My staff, I tell them that part of my expectations for their job is they take a half an hour of their work time and take care of themselves. I can't say that you can do that at your job, but I encourage you to spell out your wellness throughout the day and invest in yourself because it makes a huge difference. And again, I know this was a very brief conversation, so I encourage you to write down one thing you're willing to try and to download the handout and share it with someone near you, whether it's a family member or a friend or a colleague, and commit to supporting one another to increasing your daily wellness. People are talking about how they're feeling all of these demands and that their jobs have expanded, and it's just incredibly stressful. And what I would recommend, and AHS has asked us to do a variety of workshops. One of them is how to support your staff. But what I would suggest you do is you talk with your supervisor or manager about the realities of what you're facing and ask them for supports around, just lay out the realities of this is what I have to do and this is what I'm managing. And by the way, we're all in this pandemic and increasingly stressed together. So can we problem solve the expectations here to make them more realistic? If you have space, and I just want to name that I'm a privileged person and that I have room in my home where I'm able to cordon off a space, like right now I'm in that space, I would really encourage you to continue to have set times to work. A lot of us, our work started to bleed into other areas of our life, and we started working a ton more, not necessarily more productively, like we became all available. And I would encourage you actually to try to stick to your schedule, take a lunch break. You know, one person told me, I thought this was a fantastic idea, that they would get on their bike and pretend they were commuting to work and then go to work. And at the end of the day, get on their bike and take a bike ride and then come back as a way to put the period on the end of the day. The other thing, so I think making a space in your house, if you can, that's just for work, and then closing it off when you're done, being clear, having a conversation with your supervisors about, it's great you have a cell phone, but does that really mean I'm available after hours? So I would be, clarity and boundaries are really healthy. And I would revisit that and even write it down. And then put it away. So turn off your ringer when you're done, you know, close your computer and put it out of sight when you're done. And I think that the drive to work more comes from a variety of places, including feeling badly, like I feel bad for the world, I want to do something, or just feeling like you can't set limits. So that place earlier when I said model and encourage self-care, I think that there's a lot of value in team meetings, in groups with peers to say, okay, you continue to do that. Are you aware that's not going to be helpful to you? And let me help you problem solve how you can put the computer away. One person alone is not going to solve the problems presented by the pandemic, but certainly the one person not coming to work because they're burned out doesn't help us get there. We're all powerful people in promoting healthy self-care in ourselves and others. And I think that's part of what the message is today. So I hope to see you all again. And I really hope you'll take a moment and just write down one thing you're going to do. And just good luck. Take good care of yourself. Okay, we're going to get through this. We're like at mile 20 of a marathon, but we just got to keep plodding. Okay, everybody. Thank you for your time.